In the same way the appearance of our text is controlled by a text style, the appearance of our dimensions is controlled by a dimension style. In this lesson we're going to learn how to create a dimension style. On my screen I have a pair of mechanical parts. This one on the left has already been dimensioned, and it was dimensioned using the default settings. I'd like to dimension this part on the right. Before I do that, let's take a look at the dimension styles that we have in this drawing. I'll open the annotation panel and I'll click the dimension style menu, and you can see that we only have one style, standard. That was the style that was used to create all of these dimensions. I'd like to create a new style. To do that, I'll click the dimension style icon. This brings up the Dimension Style Manager. Over here on the left, I can see a listing of the dimension styles in this drawing. On the right are a series of icons that I can use to manage dimension styles. I can set a style current, I can create a new style, I can make changes to an existing style, I can override the settings of a style, I can even compare the settings from one style to another. I'm going to select New, and then I'll give my style a name, and I'll call it my custom dimension style. Take a look at the Start With setting. Whenever we create a new dimension style, its settings are always based on an existing style. I'll click Continue, and at this point I have essentially created an exact duplicate of the standard style. Now I can make changes. As I click through these tabs, you can see that a dimension style has a lot more settings than a text style. I'm afraid we don't have time to go through all of the settings in this lesson. Let me show you a few ways you can learn what each of these settings does. If you have a question about a setting, hover over it and AutoCAD will bring up a tooltip with more information. Another way to learn what a setting does is to change it and watch how it affects the preview. For instance, I'd like to suppress dim line 2. Let's turn that back on. I'd like to suppress extension line 2, and we'll turn that back on. For even more information about these settings, you can come down and click the Help button to access AutoCAD's Help feature. From there you can research and find out what every one of these settings is used for. Let's make some changes. Let's change the Extend Beyond Dim Line setting. That is the distance that the extension line projects past the arrowhead. I'm going to change that from 0.18 to 0.10, and when I press enter, you can see that change reflected in the preview. It is important to note that whenever you adjust a size in this dialog box, you are setting the printed size. That's the size you want this to appear on the printed sheet. Let's jump over to the Symbols and Arrows tab. Notice that each of these tabs is logically named, much like the ribbon. This makes it easier when you're trying to find a specific setting. As you can see, we have a lot of control over the appearance of our arrowheads. I'm going to select Closed Blank, so mine look different than the original style, and I'm going to change the size of the arrowheads to 0.225. We also have a center mark setting. This controls the tick that we see at the center of a dimensioned circle or arc. In my dimension style, I'd rather not see the mark. I'd rather see more of a traditional center line. We'll go to the Text tab next. From here I can select a text style for my dimensions. If I open this, you can see we only have the one style in the drawing. If I click the ellipsis button, I can create a new style from here. Let's do that. I'll select New and I'll call my style Dimensions, then I'll click OK. I will then open the font name menu and I'll select the City Blueprint font. If you do not have this font installed on your machine, select any other font that you like. One thing to remember, any text style that you use in your dimension style should have a height of 0. This way your text will scale up and down proportionally with the rest of the dimension geometry. Now that I am finished, I'll click Apply and Close. I'll then select my new text style. You can see the change over here on the preview. We will go to the Primary Units tab next. Currently my dimensions are reading in decimal. If this was an architectural drawing, I could set this to architectural and then my dimensions would read in feet and inches. I'm going to change this back to decimal, and then I'll change the precision to 2 decimal spaces. Notice there is also a precision for angular dimensions, and currently this is set to the even degree. I'm going to change this to 2 decimal spaces as well. When I'm finished adjusting the properties of my dimension style, I'll click OK. You can see my style is now current, and I'll click Close. Let's add some dimensions to this part. I'll launch the Linear tool and I'll select the endpoints of this chamfer, and I will place my dimension. You can see the differences between my dimension style and the standard style. I'll press the spacebar to go back into the linear command, and I'll dimension the overall width of the part. I will then dimension the overall height of the part. Let's do the radius. Remember, in this dimension style we are not using the small mark. If I grab this fillet, you can see that we have a traditional center line. I will dimension the diameter of the hole next. Finally, I'll dimension the angle. I'll select the chamfer edge and the top edge, and I'll create a supplementary angle dimension. Notice the difference in these two values. Because the standard style defaults to the even degree for angular measurements, this dimension reads incorrect. One of the best parts about having the appearance of your dimensions controlled by a style is that if you want to make changes, you can simply modify the style and all the dimensions will update automatically. Let's make a change. Maybe I'd like to adjust the text height for all of these dimensions. To do that, I'll open the annotation panel and then I'll click the dimension style icon. I'll make sure my style is selected and I'll click modify. Since this is a text property, I'll probably find the setting on the text tab. Let's change the text height to 0.25. When I'm finished, I'll click OK and close. You can see that all of my dimensions conform to the new setting. Now that I have two dimension styles in this drawing, I can use either one whenever I like. For instance, let's say I'd like to add another dimension to this part on the left, and I'd like to use the standard style. I'll open the annotation panel. I will set the standard style current. I'll launch the linear tool, and then I'll dimension the length of this edge on the right side. At this point, the angle is now redundant. Since it's technically incorrect anyway, I'm going to select it and press delete. To create a similar dimension on the right side part using my custom style, I'll open the menu. I'll set my style current. I'll launch the linear command and I'll dimension the right side edge. As you can see, using the Dimension Style Manager, we have complete control over the appearance of our dimensions. Not only that, if we want to change the way our dimensions look, we can simply modify the style and all related dimensions will update automatically.